This video is brought to you by Artistworks. Artistworks are part of True5 Studios, and they offer direct access to master musicians through their innovative online learning platform. Partnering with iconic musicians, they've crafted decades of industry experience into guided paths of online lessons. Crucially, there's an option to get personal feedback tailored specific to your playing via their unique video exchange. Get direct guidance towards your playing goals. You can use the code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of Artistworks courses.
Last weekend I had two weddings. I had one on the Friday evening and I had one on the Saturday, and I asked my buddy Ash, who plays drums, incredible drummer. He didn't wear socks on the Saturday, but he did wear socks on the Friday. Interesting. Anyway, so I said, what guitar should I bring? He said, bring a Les Paul, you haven't played one in a while. So I think it was last year at Hugh Fernley Whittingstall's place. Anyway, I gigged a Les Paul for the very first time. And I think that was the last time as well. Between then and now, I did play a couple of tunes with Jake on his Murphy Lab for a gig. But I only showed up to play a couple of tunes. I think that would have been in February or something like that. So I wasn't sure what to expect. Now, the things that we know about Les Paul guitars versus the sorts of things that I normally gig. So I would normally gig either the Yamaha Revstar or a Strat of some form. Now, those are quite light guitars. The Revstars are chambered. And of course, a Stratocaster, like a good weight Stratocaster, might be about 7.5 pounds. This one here is like 9.5. So in the hands, you definitely feel it. So my thinking would be like, it's going to be a heavy feeling guitar. Past me would have thought that they're a bit clunky to play as well, but I think I've come to realise that a Les Paul is actually a very comfortable guitar to play in a lot of ways. Yes, it's not super easy to get up here, but at least it has a 22nd fret, whereas my Strat doesn't. So you need that for living on a prayer, don't you? And I'm quite into chunky-ish necks, so this is the 50s neck, so in the hand as well it feels quite comfortable. I think the slimmer neck style for me, I might start to get like a bit of cramping. I think a larger neck can help to avoid some of that for whatever reason. But I think the key to this was that I did 2 nights with a Les Paul, and I was thinking maybe I'd be tired after the end of it, or maybe I'd feel something in my back or something like that. But I didn't at all, so that was a good thing. And I think part of the key to that, I use Franklin straps. If you've not heard of them, people do ask me all the time what the straps you use, but they are like a little bit thicker than your normal kind of strap, as well as having like this really nice paddedness to them. So when it sits on your shoulder, it's really quite well spread weight. I think a decent strap is a good investment to make, especially if you've got a slightly heavier guitar like these. The other thing that, of course, these are humbuckers in here. So this one has Monty's. I actually gigged the Epiphone Lazarus on this Saturday, which has the bare knuckle mules in it, which I think would be slightly hotter than these. These are like underspun paths. I kind of always used to think that I didn't really like the clean tones out of a Les Paul. But one of the things that I noticed live with the Stratocaster, sometimes, especially if you're using in-ears, you think, oh, that sounds a bit thin. And then you end up taking off like high end or whatever. Whereas because typically your humbuckers have more of a mid-range voice anyway, they actually work for me, I think, better than I expected for clean tones. And, you know, when you're doing quite a lot of rhythm work, as most live work in bands actually is, you know, we're not playing solos most of the time, I think the humbuckers are actually a really good choice for not just tonal reasons. So I think for the clean tones, they kind of cut through a little bit better and maybe don't get some of that ice pickiness or that like plinkiness that you might get. They don't feel as potentially weak as a Strat pickup can sometimes feel if you're at lower volumes or whatever. And then the other thing is, of course, they don't hum as much as a single coil either. And, you know, typically on like dodgy wedding gigs and stuff like that, you might have not the best light systems, you might have not the best electronics and all that sort of stuff. So there are real benefits to using the humbuckers live as well. Tuning stability on a Les Paul, I think this is a point of contention for a lot of folks. I know that Phil, who sometimes watches the channel, has just tried a little kind of thing which straightens or puts a bit more, straightens it up, doesn't it? So basically I think the main issues are the D and G string. The string break, or whatever that would be, that angle there, is kind of not optimal, and it means that it's pulling against the nut that way. So some folks have designed these things which kind of pull them into place. I don't know if anyone else out there has tried that sort of thing, but that can help to improve tuning stability to some extent, I believe. The main issue for me that caught me off guard a few times, so potentially when you're coming out of a solo, obviously as a Strat player, I'm used to having my thing right here. So typically I would use for clean tones the neck pickup, and I use the bridge pickup for my dirty tones. So if I'm switching over for like a rhythm part or a lead part, I would go for the bridge pickup. Now, of course, generally I'm going to end a solo down here, and then I have to switch with my foot and then come up here. That feels to me at the moment quite unnatural. And that's the main area that I've found myself sort of running into occasional issues. You know, you might have just played, I don't know, Living on a Prayer. No, Living on a Prayer because you stay on the bridge, don't you? But anything where you have to come out of a heavier part into a clean part is where I'm thinking this switch would be handier down there. For me, just because I'm a Strat player, all that's like where my muscle memory is. But aside from that, I really enjoy it. I think for solos as well, because you don't have the trem, the bending can feel a little bit more stable, as well as, again, this is like the humbucker thing, when you start playing further up the neck, the tones tend to stay a little bit thicker, and maybe you don't need as much gain, because it's kind of, the pickups are doing a bit more of the work. And it's another thing that occasionally with a Strat, I feel myself thinking like once you get up here, because you've got less of the string vibrating, there's less energy, you feel like maybe you're starting to lose a little bit of sustain further up the neck and things aren't singing quite as much. That's not a thing that happens with the Les Paul, so I was quite happy with that as well. So no huge downsides. The other thing is to transport a Les Paul, I don't trust not having it in a hard case. I know there are some decent options for soft cases. I generally use like a Thomann double case and I take two S-type guitars. But I'm not confident doing that with Les Pauls. Let me know if you've got good suggestions for cases for Les Pauls. I think I'm going to be investigating gigging the Les Pauls more because I do think they look really good as well. They play really good and the weight wasn't a factor for me. Of course, I'm doing a big load in. Sorry, I didn't mean of course, you wouldn't know this, but I take the PA and all the sound and all that stuff as well. So there's a fair amount of lugging around to do on top of that, but it wasn't like the Les Paul felt noticeably heavier, which was one of my worries. Of course, if I had back problems, as occasionally I've had in the past, the Les Paul would probably not be my first choice to take out, but for that it was really good, whilst I'm feeling pretty healthy in the back area. So, I don't know, let me know your thoughts. Have you gigged Les Pauls for years? Is there anything you don't like about them as a Les Paul fan? Or if you're not a Les Paul fan, have you tried gigging them and tried to get on with them and just never got away with it? I just felt like it couldn't really have gone much better except for occasionally this switch catching me out. And that's the only one area really where I felt like that would take a bit of getting used to. I'll catch you in another video soon. If you want the presets that I was using in the intro, Gumroad is the place to grab them. And I'll catch you in another video soon. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I'm going to actually try this weekend and gig the PRS guitars because I want to see what those are like, because those are somewhere between sort of that Fender Gibson world that I'm sort of straddling both sides at the moment. So, cheers.